The sky above Prime burned orange and red. Ships fell from the clouds like angry metal birds, dropping fire on everything below. Buildings that had stood for thousands of years turned to dust in seconds. They ran through the streets, screaming, crying, trying to find safety that did not exist. Watched it all from the orbital station above her world. She pressed her soft, gray hands against the window and felt tears roll down her face. Her people had never known war. They had never built weapons. They had never needed to fight anyone. They were peaceful. They spent their lives studying stars, painting beautiful art, and singing songs that could make anyone cry with joy. Now they were dying. They had come without warning. Their ships blocked out the sun. Their soldiers marched through cities and killed everyone they found. They wanted the planet. They wanted its resources. They were simply in the way. Was a communications officer. Her job was to send messages between ships and talk to other species across the galaxy. She had spoken to traders from 100 different worlds. She knew many languages. But now, as she watched her home burn, she could not find any words at all. An older named grabbed her arm. His eyes were wide with fear. "Send a message," he begged. "Send it everywhere. Someone must help us." Looked at him. "Who will come? The Galactic Council has already refused. They say they are too strong. They say we should surrender." "Then send it beyond the Council," said. "Send it to everyone, every species, every world. Someone out there must care." Did not believe anyone would answer. But she had nothing else to do except watch her people die. So she sat at her console and began to type. She recorded images of the burning cities. She recorded the sounds of her people screaming. She wrote a simple message in every language she knew. "This is Prime. We are under attack. We cannot fight. We cannot run. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us. We are dying." She sent the signal on every frequency. She pointed it at every star she could reach. Then she put her head down on the console and cried. The signal traveled through space at the speed of light. It passed dead moons and empty planets. It passed the borders of the Galactic Council. It went further than any message had ever gone before. 3 days later, it reached a small yellow star on the edge of the galaxy. It reached a blue and green planet called Earth. Admiral Park was drinking coffee in his office when the signal arrived. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served in the United Earth Defense Fleet for 30 years. He had seen many things, but he had never heard anything like this. The message played on his screen. He saw cities on fire. He heard people crying for help. He saw small, gentle creatures being hunted like animals. His coffee grew cold in his hand as he watched. When the message ended, sat very still for a long time. Then he pressed a button on his desk. "Get me Captain Lee, Major, and Doctor. Emergency meeting in 1 hour." They gathered in the war room. Was a sharp woman with short black hair. She commanded the assault carrier Indomitable and had never lost a battle. Was younger, with strong arms and a scar across her chin. She led the 7th Drop Marines, soldiers so fierce that enemies called them the Reapers. Was gentle and quiet, a scientist who studied alien life and helped humans understand other species. Played the message for them. No one spoke while it played. When it ended, looked at the Admiral. "The Empire," she said. "I know them. They have conquered 12 worlds in the last 50 years. They are brutal. They show no mercy." "How far away is Prime?" asked. 4 days at maximum speed," answered. Crossed her arms. "Then we should leave in 3. Shook her head. "The Galactic Council has sent us a warning. They say we must not interfere. They are too powerful. If we attack them, we will make enemies of half the galaxy." Looked at the frozen image on the screen. A child, covered in dust, reaching for a mother who would never come. "The Council says we should let them die," he said quietly. "The Council is afraid," replied. "They have never attacked a Council species. The Council wants to keep it that way. They will sacrifice them to protect themselves." "And what do we do?" asked. "Do we sacrifice them too?" The room was silent. Finally spoke. Her voice was hard as stone. My grandmother used to tell me a story. She said that evil wins when good people do nothing. Those people sent a message into the dark, hoping someone would care. If we ignore them, what does that make us? Looked at each of them. He saw the same answer in every face. He stood up and walked to the communications panel. He opened a channel to every ship in the fleet. His voice was calm and steady. This is Admiral Park. 6 hours ago, we received a distress signal from a world called Prime. They are under attack. They cannot defend themselves. They asked for help. He paused. The Galactic Council has told us to stay away. They say it is not our fight. They say the enemy is too strong. His eyes grew hard. I disagree. Those people called for help. We answer. First Expeditionary Fleet, prepare for departure. We leave in 6 hours. He closed the channel and looked at his officers. Let's go save them. In the great database of the Galactic Council, every planet had a classification. Most worlds were Class 1 or Class 2, meaning they were safe and comfortable. A few were Class 3, which meant they had some dangers like storms or wild animals. Class 4 worlds were rare and hostile, with extreme temperatures or poisonous air. Earth was Class 5, the highest and most dangerous classification possible. The database called it a. Earth had gravity so strong that it crushed the bones of most alien visitors. It had temperatures that swung from burning hot to freezing cold, sometimes in the same day. It had predators everywhere, in the water, on the land, even in the air. The very air itself contained a gas called oxygen, which could start fires and destroy metal. The planet was covered in violent storms, earthquakes, and floods. Any species that survived on such a world was considered extremely dangerous. The Council called them. Most civilized species avoided them completely. They had never met a. They were about to learn why everyone else was afraid. Overlord stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his soldiers burn another city. He was tall and covered in thick, armored scales. His eyes were cold and yellow. He had conquered 7 worlds before this one and had never lost a battle. When his sensors detected ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, he was not worried. He turned to look at the display and saw 12 small vessels. They were ugly and blocky, nothing like the elegant ships of the Council species. "What are those?" he asked his officer. The officer checked the database. His face showed confusion. "They are from a planet called Earth, Overlord, a Class 5 world in the outer sectors." Laughed. 12 ships. Against my fleet of 60, send Battle Group 3 to destroy them. This will take only a few minutes. 15 warships turned toward the human fleet. Their commanders were confident. They outnumbered the enemy. Their weapons were superior. This would be easy. They were wrong. Captain Lee sat in her command chair aboard the Indomitable. Her crew moved around her like parts of a perfect machine. Every person knew their job. Every station was ready. "Enemy ships approaching," her sensor officer reported. 15 vessels, they are charging weapons. Smiled. It was not a nice smile. "All ships execute pattern Delta. Fire on my command." The human ships spread apart like fingers on a hand. They did not understand this movement. They continued flying straight toward their enemy. "Fire!" The Indomitable shook as her released. These weapons did not shoot beams of light like Council technology. They fired solid pieces of metal at incredible speed. Each slug hit with the force of a small bomb. The first ship exploded before its captain could even give an order. The second and third followed within seconds. The humans fired again and again, filling space with deadly metal. They tried to return fire. Their energy beams hit the human shields and did little damage. Human ships were built heavy and strong, designed to survive the brutal environment of there. "They're running," the sensor officer reported. The battle had lasted 11 minutes. 9 ships were destroyed. The rest fled back to the main fleet. On his flagship, Overlord stared at the display in disbelief. He had just lost 9 warships to a force less than half his size. It was impossible. "All ships," he commanded, his voice shaking with anger. "Attack, all of them, now." But the humans were not done. On the surface of Prime, the sky filled with fire. But this time, the fire came from above in a different way. Metal pods fell from the clouds, screaming through the air, crashing into the ground with massive force. The pods opened. Human soldiers stepped out. Major was the first to touch soil. She wore heavy armor that made her look like a monster from old stories. Her rifle was almost as big as an adult. Behind her, hundreds more Marines emerged from their pods. A group of soldiers saw them and charged. They were bigger than humans. Their scales could stop small weapons. They had claws that could tear through metal. Raised her rifle and fired. The first fell with a hole in its chest. She fired again and again. Her Marines spread out beside her, moving together without speaking, as if they could read each other's minds. They outnumbered them 3 to 1. It did not matter. Humans were faster. Humans were more accurate, and humans absolutely refused to stop fighting. One Marine took a claw strike to his shoulder. His armor cracked. Blood poured from the wound. He screamed, but not in fear or pain. He screamed in anger. He grabbed the with his bare hands and threw it to the ground, then shot it in the face. Watched from a broken building nearby. She had come down from the orbital station when she heard that help had arrived. Now she could not believe what she was seeing. These creatures from Earth were terrifying. They moved like predators. They fought like demons. But when one of them saw her, the human did not attack. Instead, the soldier pointed to a safe building and spoke in broken. "Go hide, we protect." Then the human turned and ran back into the battle, laughing as he fired his weapon. Laughing. Had seen many species in her work. She had never seen anyone laugh while fighting for their life. These were insane. The battle for the capital lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the forces were broken. Thousands lay dead. The survivors ran for their ships, desperate to escape. Major stood in the center of the ruined city, surrounded by her Marines. Her armor was covered in alien blood. Her breathing was heavy but steady. "All units report," she said into her radio. "Area 1 clear. Area 2 clear. Area 3 clear." She looked up at the sky, where the last ships were fleeing toward the stars. "Admiral Park," she reported, "the city is ours, they are safe." Above the planet received her message. He allowed himself a small smile. "Good work, Major. Hold your position. We're not done yet." He looked out the window at the retreating fleet. They would be back. He knew it. They would come back with more ships and more soldiers. But for now they had hope again. For now they were alive. And that was enough. The guns had stopped firing. The ships had stopped falling from the sky. For the first time in weeks, Prime was quiet. But peace did not mean safety, and victory did not mean understanding. Walk through the refugee camp that the humans had built near the ruined capital. Thousands of sat in rows of white tents. They had food, water, and medicine. Human doctors moved between them, treating wounds with gentle hands. It confused her. These were the same creatures who had torn through soldiers like paper. These were the same beings who had laughed while killing. Now they handed out blankets to children and spoke in soft voices to frightened elders. Dr. found standing alone near the edge of the camp. The human woman smiled warmly and sat down beside her. "You look troubled," said. Did not know how to explain. "Your people," she began slowly. "I watched them fight, I saw them kill. They were like monsters, but now they are kind. They help our wounded. They play with our children. I do not understand." Nodded. She had expected this question. "Humans are complicated," she said. "We have 2 sides. When we love completely. When we protect with everything we have. But when someone hurts the people we care about, we become something else. We become dangerous. You cared about us, asked, but you did not know us. We heard you calling for help. That was enough. Thought about this for a long time. On her world, violence was the worst possible thing. They had removed all aggression from their society thousands of years ago. They believed that peace was the highest goal. But the way of peace had almost killed them. If the humans had been peaceful, they would have won. Perhaps thought there was more than one way to be good. Across the camp, Major sat on a broken stone wall. Her armor was off for the first time in days. She wore simple clothes and looked almost normal, except for the scars on her arms and the hard look in her eyes. A group of children had gathered around her. They were curious about the strange alien who had saved their city, reached into her pocket and pulled out a small ball. "I will teach you a game," she said. The children watched as she threw the ball in the air and caught it. Then she threw it to one of them. The child caught it with both hands and made a sound of surprise and joy. "Throw it back," said with a smile. Soon all the children were playing, throwing the ball between them, laughing for the first time since the invasion began. Watched them with soft eyes. The monster from the battlefield was gone. Only a woman remained. But the peace would not last. Everyone knew they would return. And there was another problem coming. 3 days after the battle, a golden ship appeared in orbit. It was beautiful and elegant, covered in symbols that recognized. The Galactic Council had sent someone. Transported down to the surface. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. His species, were one of the oldest in the galaxy. They considered themselves very wise and very important. Admiral Park met him at the landing site. The admiral stood straight and calm, his hands clasped behind his back. "Admiral Park," said, his voice was cold, "you have caused a great deal of trouble." "We saved a planet," replied. "You attacked the Empire without council approval. You violated 17 treaties. You have put the entire galaxy at risk." "Did not move. They were dying, we helped them." "They are not your concern. They are not members of your alliance. They have no connection to Earth. You had no right to interfere." "They asked for help." Waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Many species ask for help. The Council cannot save everyone. We must think about the greater good. They are powerful. If we anger them, they might attack Council worlds. Millions could die." "Millions were already dying here," said, "right in front of us." "That is unfortunate but acceptable. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few." Something changed in size. They became harder, colder. "I have heard that argument before," he said quietly. "Humans used to say the same thing. We used it to justify terrible crimes. We learned better." He stepped closer too. They stepped back without thinking. "The called for help," continued. "We came. The committed murder. We stopped them. If the Council thinks that is a crime, then the Council can come and explain it to us personally." He paused. "We will be waiting." His blue skin grew pale. He had never been threatened by anyone before. His species had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, but there was something in this human's eyes that frightened him deeply. "The Council will not forget this," he said. "Neither will we," replied. Left without another word, his golden ship flew away, disappearing into the stars. Captain Lee had watched the entire conversation. She walked over to the Admiral as the ship vanished. "That was either very brave or very stupid," she said. Smiled slightly, "Maybe both. The Council will make us pay for this." "Perhaps, but look around you." He gestured at the camp, where human soldiers were helping rebuild their homes. "These people are alive because we came. Every child in this camp has a future because we refused to look away. Whatever the Council does to us, it was worth it." Looked at the camp, at the children playing, at the families reunited, at the doctors healing wounds. "Yes," she agreed, "it was worth it." Far above them, hidden in the darkness of space, scouts watched everything. They recorded the human numbers, their weapons, their defenses. They sent all of it back to Overlord. The Overlord sat in his throne and studied the reports. His yellow eyes burned with hatred. "They think they have won," he said to his generals. "They think a few ships and a few soldiers can defeat the Empire." He stood up, his massive body filling the room with shadow. "Gather everyone, every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. We will show these what true power looks like." He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "And when we are finished with them, we will find there, and we will burn it until nothing remains but ash." The fleet began to gather, 400 ships, 2 million soldiers. The war was far from over. The warning came at midnight. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the carrier Indomitable, staring at the sensor display. His face showed no fear, but his heart was beating fast. 400 red dots filled the screen. Each dot was a warship. Behind them came transport ships carrying millions of soldiers. Overlord was coming for revenge. "Sir," the sensor officer said, "they will arrive in 6 hours." Nodded slowly. He turned to look at his officers. Captain Lee stood to his right, her face pale but determined. Major was there too, her arms crossed, her jaw tight. "How many ships do we have?" asked. 12, sir. Most have damage from the first battle. We are low on ammunition." "And reinforcements from Earth?" 2 weeks away at best." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They were going to die. There was no possible way to defeat 400 ships with 12. Spoke first. "We should retreat, fall back to Earth space, come back with a larger fleet." "If we leave, the die," said. "Every person in that camp, every child I taught to play games, dead. If we stay, we all die, and we cannot save anyone if we are dead." Turn 2, Admiral, what do we do? Looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere down there on the surface of Prime, millions of innocent people were sleeping. They trusted the humans to protect them. They believed that help had come. How could he abandon them? "We stay," he said quietly. Stared at him, "Sir. We stay and we fight. Every minute we hold them is another minute for them to escape. Every ship we destroy is one less ship that can threaten them later." "We will die," said. Met her eyes. "Then we die doing something that matters." Slowly nodded, then nodded too. One by one, every officer in the room accepted the order. They would stand, they would fight, and they would probably die. But they would not run. The next 6 hours were filled with desperate preparation. Engineers repaired damaged ships as fast as possible. Soldiers loaded every weapon they could find. The space around Prime was filled with mines and traps. On the surface gathered her Marines. There were only 800 left from the first battle. She stood before them in the early morning light. "You know what is coming," she said. "The biggest army this galaxy has ever seen. They want to kill everyone on this planet. They want to erase them from history." She looked at each face, young soldiers, veterans, men and women who had followed her into hell and back. "The odds are impossible. We are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. By any reasonable measure, we have already lost." She smiled. "But we are not reasonable. We are human, and humans do not know how to quit." A cheer rose from the Marines. They raised their weapons and shouted their battle cries. Raised her fist. "Today we show the galaxy what can do. Today we fight for people we have never met. Today we prove that being human means something." The cheering grew louder. "Now hold the line." 6 hours later, the sky turned dark. The fleet arrived like a wave of death. Ships filled the space above Prime, blocking out the stars. Overlord sat on his throne, watching the tiny human fleet below. "Destroy them," he ordered. The first wave of ships moved forward. They hit the minefields and explosions filled the darkness. Dozens of ships died before they could fire a single shot. But hundreds more came behind them. The Indomitable shook as enemy fire hit her shields, shouted orders from her chair, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Return fire, all guns, give them everything." Human roared, missiles flew through space, ships exploded one after another, but for every ship that died, 10 more took its place. The battle lasted for hours. Human ships fought beyond any reasonable limit. When shields failed, they used armor. When armor cracked, they sealed the holes with their own bodies and kept fighting. A communications officer sat at her burning station, calling targets to the gunners even as smoke filled her lungs. A pilot flew his damaged fighter straight into a carrier, destroying it with his own ship. A medic treated the wounded with one hand while firing a pistol with the other. On the surface, it was even worse. Soldiers fell from the sky in numbers beyond counting. They crashed into the human positions like a flood of teeth and claws. Stood at the front line, her armor was cracked, her rifle was empty. She had switched to a pistol, then to a knife. Now she fought with her bare hands. A twice her size charged at her. She ducked under its claws, grabbed its arm, and twisted. The creature screamed as its bone broke. She picked up its weapon and shot it in the face. "Hold," she screamed, "hold the line." Her Marines were dying around her, but they did not retreat. They did not surrender. They fought until their last breath. Hours passed. The human fleet was down to 4 ships. The Marines were down to 300. Ammunition was gone. Hope was fading. Then, watching from the refugee camp, saw something in the sky. New lights, new ships coming fast. At first she thought it was more. Her heart sank. It was over. They had lost. But then the radio crackled with a new voice. "First Expeditionary Fleet, this is Rear Admiral of the Second Fleet. We heard you needed some help." His hands shook as he grabbed the radio. "Admiral, how?" "When news of your battle reached Earth, everyone volunteered. Every ship that could fly, every soldier that could fight. We came as fast as we could." Through the window, saw them. 30 new warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. At their center was the dreadnought Fury of Terra, the largest ship humanity had ever built. "You came," whispered. "Of course we came," Admiral replied. "Nobody fights alone." The Second Fleet crashed into them from behind. Fresh weapons tore through tired enemy ships. New Marines dropped to the surface, reinforcing broken lines. Overlord watched his victory turn to ash. His fleet was caught between 2 forces. His soldiers were being slaughtered. "Retreat," he finally screamed. "All ships retreat." But it was too late. The humans were not letting them go. Ship after ship was hunted down and destroyed. Soldiers who tried to surrender were captured. Those who kept fighting were killed. By morning, the armada was broken. Its flagship limped away with only a handful of survivors. On the surface stood among the bodies of enemies and friends. Her armor was destroyed. Her body was covered in wounds, but she was still standing. "Major," a young Marine said, "we won." Looked at the rising sun. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. "Yes," she said quietly, "we won." Above the planet, the human fleet gathered together. Battered ships floated next to fresh ones. The survivors looked at each other through windows and cameras. Admiral Park opened a channel to everyone. "Today, we proved something. We proved that humans will never abandon those who need help. We proved that even against impossible odds, we will fight. We proved that we are worthy of the stars." He paused. "We lost friends today. Good people, heroes. We will remember them forever. But because of their sacrifice, millions of innocent people will live. That is what it means to be human." The fleet was silent for a long moment. Then from every ship cheering began. The war did not end with the battle of the burning sky, but that battle broke something inside the Empire. Their greatest fleet was destroyed. Their undefeated army was crushed. and the species that did it was one they had never heard of before. Fear spread through the Empire like fire. Overlord returned home with his broken ships and tried to rebuild. He called for more soldiers, more weapons, more ships, but his officers no longer trusted him. His soldiers no longer believed in victory. 3 weeks after the battle, was killed by his own generals. They hoped that offering his body to the humans would bring peace. It did not. Admiral Park was a kind man, but he had seen what the did to the. He had walked through burned cities and stepped over small bodies. He had no mercy left for those who killed children. Human ships hunted every commander who had ordered attacks on civilians, every general, every captain, every officer who had blood on their hands. Some surrendered and faced trial. Others ran and were found anyway. Within a year, the empire collapsed. Without leaders, without an army, without hope, their society fell apart. The species that had terrified the galaxy for centuries was finished. And the galaxy noticed. The Galactic Council met in emergency session, stood before the assembled leaders of 100 species, his blue face tight with worry. Humanity is dangerous, he said. They are violent. They are unpredictable. We must contain them before they turn their weapons on us. An older, a female from a peaceful species called the, rose to speak. Contain them, she asked. They saved an innocent world. They protected people they had never met. They sacrificed their own lives for strangers. Is that the behavior of monsters? They destroyed an empire, insisted. An empire that deserved to be destroyed. The debate continued for days. In the end, the council decided not to act against humanity, not because they were convinced humans were good, but because they were afraid of what would happen if they tried. They had proven what they could do. No one wanted to be their next enemy. But some species saw something else in humanity, something beyond the violence and the fury. They saw beings who would cross the stars to help strangers, who would die to protect the innocent, who would fight impossible battles for people they had never met. Applications to join the Earth Alliance began arriving, first a few species, then dozens, then hundreds. They were not afraid of humanity. They wanted to stand beside them. On Prime, they began to rebuild. Human engineers helped design new cities. Human teachers opened schools. Human doctors built hospitals. The scars of war slowly began to heal. Major stayed longer than anyone expected. She had fallen in love with the planet and its gentle people. She spent her days helping rebuild walls and her evenings teaching children to play games. The monster of the battlefield became the ant that every young wanted to visit. Doctor opened a center for understanding between species, and humans studied together, learned from each other, and became friends. The fear that had felt when she first saw humans fighting slowly transformed into something else. Trust. Admiral Park returned to Earth as a hero. Statues were built in his honor. Songs were written about the first expeditionary fleet, but did not enjoy the attention. He was tired. He had seen too much death. 1 year after the war, he stood at a memorial for the soldiers who had died. Thousands of names were carved into black stone. Each name was someone who would never come home. Captain Lee found him there, alone in the rain. "You saved millions of lives," she said. "I sent thousands to their deaths," he replied. "They chose to follow you. They knew what they were doing. They believed it was right." Touched one of the names on the wall, a young soldier, only 22 years old. "Was it worth it?" he asked. "All this death, all this pain, was it worth it?" Did not answer for a long time. Then she pointed to the sky. "Up there," she said, "there is a planet full of people who are alive because of what we did. Children who will grow up and have children of their own. Artists who will create beautiful things. Scientists who will discover new wonders. An entire species that almost disappeared from the universe." She looked at him. Yes, it was worth it. 2 years after the war, came to Earth. She was now the first ambassador to humanity. Her job was to build friendship between two very different species, but before she could begin her work, she had one question to ask. She found Admiral Park in his office. He was older now. His hair was completely gray, but his eyes were still kind. "Admiral," she said, "I have wondered something since the beginning. You did not know us. You had nothing to gain by saving us. The council told you to stay away. Your own people might have died. Why did you come?" Was quiet for a moment, then he smiled softly. "On Earth we have a word, empathy. It means feeling the pain of others as if it were your own. When we heard your message, we felt your fear. We felt your suffering, and we could not ignore it." He leaned forward. "There is another word, duty. It means the responsibility to act when you have the power to help. You asked for help. We had the power to give it. That made it our duty." "Thought about this. But you could have died. Your whole species could have been put in danger." "Yes, but some things are more important than safety. Some things are worth dying for." "What things?" Looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. "Protecting the innocent, fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves, being the kind of people who answer when someone calls for help." He turned back to her. "That is what it means to be human." 10 years later, a monument stood in the center of the new capital. It was made of white stone, as tall as the tallest building in the city. The statue showed a human soldier carrying a child, one arm raised to shield them from danger. At the base of the monument, words were carved in both script and every human language. "They heard our cry. They crossed the stars. They fought for strangers. They are humanity, and they answer." Every year on the anniversary of the first battle, humans gathered at the monument together. They shared food. They told stories. They remembered those who had died and celebrated those who had lived. The alliance between Earth and Prime became the strongest in the galaxy. Other species joined them. The old Galactic Council slowly faded, replaced by something new, something built on courage instead of fear, something built on helping others instead of protecting yourself. The galaxy changed forever on the day that a desperate signal reached a small blue planet. It changed because beings from it chose mercy over safety. They chose duty over convenience. They chose to answer a call for help from strangers they had never met. And in doing so, they showed the entire universe what humanity could be. Not monsters, not conquerors, not destroyers. Protectors. Heroes. Family. The message that had sent into the darkness so long ago had finally been answered, and the answer echoed through the stars forever. "If you need help, call us, we will come." And they always did.